Welcome back to Just Chattin. And this is the series of videos we do on Thursday and Sunday evenings just for our own entertainment. So for all of you Audie fans, he's asleep. He's been asleep like for the last week. I keep shaking him to make sure that, he's still conscious because, in fact, all he's been doing is sleeping. Now, I am no cat behavioral psychologist, but I do think he was unhappy that I left. It was just for a day. I don't think it sat well with him, and I think he was traumatized, and now he is sleeping it off, because he's a cat. Whenever they're traumatized, they just sleep it off. That's how they work. So, am I holding out any hope for him making a little photobomb appearance? No, not really. It's been over a week since he's shown up for a video, but I don't think this is going to last very long. Warm weather is fast approaching, and I don't think Audie is going to sleep through springtime. I think it's okay for now, but the sun comes out, he's going to be coming out too. All right, we are going to take a quick break for the intro, and we will come right back and get right into it. So, Sentebale, this is all over the news now, and all kinds of stories are emerging, but I have not been able to find anything that is actually laying out the entire history. So I started doing some research for you so that we can have a complete, or at least as complete as possible at this time, picture of what's going on here. Because I know a lot of us are curious about this. We had heard about the charity from time to time in the past, and it's almost like this blew up onto the scene with no backstory. Well, here's the thing. There is a backstory. And as I say, I've gone into the research to try to piece it together, and I think I have a pretty comprehensive offering for you of what is going on, where the charity is at this point, how it got here, and I think we can even make some predictions on the likely outcome. So, let's start with the early 21st century and the sock puppet. So, the UK has a little princeling with nothing to do, all day to do it in, and a growing scandal with his drug use and his irresponsible behaviors, and he is off on his gap year in Africa, because it's very important that, they put him somewhere. Harry's behavior at this point was getting harder and harder for the palace aides to control. Now, they did a wonderful job of scrubbing up his public relations. He was, at this period, among the most popular of all of the British royals. There were times when he was eclipsing the late Queen, if you can believe that. I have trouble believing that, but what can I say? The polls don't lie. He was insanely popular. Meanwhile, he was involved in drug scandals. He was in rehab. His behavior was becoming outrageous, punching photographers, strip shows in Las Vegas, in which he was the star. It was a mess. He was becoming an adult. He had no goals, no direction, no interests. There was no obvious path for this extraneous bit of royal family. Basically, if they didn't find something to do with him very quickly, he was just going to be an embarrassment to everyone. So he goes off to Africa, and he becomes involved with the Lesotho people, and it was, gap year, it was a vacation for him, basically. I think that in his memoir, Spare, he attempted to make it look like it was some sort of internship, whatever. No, basically it was a glorified vacation. Make no mistake about it. This was not really a young person going out working for a living. No, he was surrounded by bodyguards, and he was making friends with the prince of the Lesotho people. There you go. That's our background. The palace aides figure they can plug into this, and Buckingham Palace puts together a Lesotho-based charity called Sentebale. And the sock puppet is going to be the patron of this charity, along with Prince Cicio or Ciso. Forgive me, I really don't know how these names are pronounced. I'm just going to do the best I can. So he and the Lesotho prince are going to be joint patrons of this charity. Fantastic. At least it's going to keep the sock puppet from showing his naked butt on the front pages of the American tabloids for a change. So he goes into the army, they put the charity together, and at this point, a young corporate attorney from Zimbabwe, Dr. Sophie Chanduka, who was just Sophie Chanduka at that time. Her doctorate, I believe, is from the University of Coventry and is honorary. But having said that, she is a very highly educated woman in her own country, in the US, in the UK. So for all I know, she actually does have a doctorate degree or equivalent from some one of these universities. She is a corporate attorney. She specializes in corporate finance. This becomes critical. She gets involved with the charity in 2008. Now, mind you, the charity was formed in 2006. At this point, the charity is 2 years old and is already living under a tremendous cloud. In the first 18 months of the existence of the Sentebale charity, it had taken in $1.5 million in British pounds and spent about £84,000 on programming. So, yeah, not much. The overhead, salaries, operating costs are out of control. They paid almost $100,000 for a website, if you can believe that. I have trouble believing it, but it's in their records. So yeah, clearly there was massive financial mismanagement, and the money that was being given to help the young people of these very depressed African regions was simply not getting to the young people. The money, well, during that same period, when they spent £84,000 on programming, they spent more than twice that on their chairperson's, their executive director's salary. So, it was a mess. Bringing somebody like Sophie Chanduka in was a masterstroke. It was brilliant. You have somebody who has made her way in the corporate world, understands financing, and she's like the new sheriff in town. She's come in, she can clean things up because their reputation at this point is in tatters. So keep in mind, at this point, that's like 15 years ago that this is all going on. So Dr. Sophie has been involved in this charity for a very long time. She was a trustee initially, and eventually they were so pleased with her that they made her the chairperson of the charity. And I believe the actual title she has is chairman. Please forgive me, it's not a title I can get behind, especially not for such a very, very talented woman. So just let's not minimize the fact that this is a woman in that office. So I'm going to stick with chairperson. So she's she's elevated to a position of some control and some authority. And the first thing she starts doing is looking at the corporate governance. She's doing what she's been trained to do. She's following the money. She is approaching this as any attorney being brought into any troublesome situation to clean things up would be looking at it. Good for her. And by the way, if you want a more detailed evaluation of what's been going on with the money in this charity, check out the Royal Griff's videos, because she has done a really good job of researching this. And for those of you who've been following this channel for a while, you know I greatly respect her research, and it's her own research. She does not come onto her podcasts spouting off other people's work. This is her own research. So let's show her some love and let's check out what she has to say on this. So back to Dr. Sophie. She is looking at this and she's not liking what she sees. What she wants to do is remove the funding of this charity from the rich white people who are, frankly, the backbone of the charity. They are the board of trustees. They are the donors. And she wants this to become more representative of the global initiative that Sentebale is supposed to be. Because it starts off in Lesotho, it's incorporated Botswana in there, and I think the eventual focus, this is speculation on my part, but I think that it's safe to conclude they would like to eventually incorporate other African nations into this program, because they are in one of the most risky parts of the world. Lowest educational levels, lowest survival rates, highest rates of HIV among children. Their rate of orphaned children is staggering. So yes, I think they're hoping to spread. Dr. Sophie wants to change the basic thinking behind the fundraising. Is this legitimate? Absolutely, because the fundraising has already been called into question when they received donations that had been linked to some unfortunate donations Charles had become involved with, in which people got British orders, or awards, these OBEs or whatever they are. Please forgive me, I'm not British. I don't know what those awards are. I know people put great store in getting one of these awards. And we know that Charles got into a bit of hot water when the dispersal of these awards were linked to charitable contributions. Oh yes, Sentebale was absolutely involved in this. In fact, it has been suggested that it was our little princeling who initially opened the door for this whole process to begin. Pretty ugly, but there you have it. So yes, it had to be cleaned up for a variety of reasons. They came very close to being tainted by that scandal. They were not. Fortunately, for some reason, Sentebale sort of slipped through the cracks, although, as I say, the Sentebale donations were pivotal in that whole scandal of money for awards. So, was she correct? Yes. What she was hoping to do was, and I assume she is still hoping to do this, is target U.S. corporate donations and individual U.S. wealthy philanthropists and donors, and just separate them from a bit of their money. That is in the nature of fundraising. Part of the reason for this was their financial cost in fundraising is ridiculously high. It's been as high as 30%. And that is because their main source of fundraising have been events like the sock puppets polo matches. So now we have to get back to the sock puppet again. And you're going to see, this is going to be bouncing like a ping pong ball between our little princeling and Dr. Sophie. So, the polo matches that benefit Sentebale are also generating tremendous positive press for our little princeling. And he is in desperate need of positive press for his brand, quite frankly. But it's at a very great cost. And a big piece of that cost is to the finances of Sentebale and the direction of Sentebale. And Dr. Sophie is absolutely right. The direction of Sentebale should be chosen by the African people. This should not be operating out of London somewhere by a bunch of polo players who are looking at this as a white man's burden kind of thing. No, no. As she said, the people, and I believe she was referring to the trustees, were concerned that the Africans were taking over. Oh, well, too bad. I mean, I'm sorry, but I can't possibly have any sympathy for them if that is what they were thinking. It's like, oh my goodness, you know, we're supposed to be giving them charity. They are the objects of our largesse. They're not supposed to be in charge. It gives me a headache just to think about it, especially because, quite frankly, I grew up in an era when that kind of thinking was almost normal. So, yeah. And we're not there anymore, thank you very much. But I think some of the people involved in this charity have not quite extricated themselves from that mindset. So this is her plan. Okay? And she is looking at the governance, the spending of the money, how fundraising is being done, the extent to which Harry, as an individual, the Sussex brand, is benefiting from Sentebale. Make no mistake about that. That is the core of this, the extent to which he is benefiting. And he benefits in many ways, primarily being the patron and the chief source of their major fundraising, which is his polo tournaments. So yeah, he's got the charity supporting his hobby. Lord only knows what kind of tax write-offs he's taking. And Lord only knows how much of those expenses are coming from the charity, because my initial take on this, it's probably a question of for every $3 they take in, $1 goes straight to these polo matches. Yeah, ouch. Good thing somebody is looking at that. Then we have the last polo match. And this was in Florida, and it was just about a year ago. It was a year ago in April. We're not quite in April. We will be tomorrow. So just about a year ago in Florida. And Nutmeg comes in, surprising everyone because she was not expected. With Serena Williams, she goes up, takes over the stage, moves Dr. Sophie from a central position. Now, Dr. Sophie is the chairperson of the board of Sentebale. She should be in a central position on that stage. Nutmeg has to move her over. She does it so ungraciously, and that's the kindest thing I can say about it, so ungraciously that she is forcing Dr. Sophie to crawl under the trophy to hit the mark Nutmeg has put for her. And the reason for that, and all you have to do is look at the photos and you will see, the reason for that is because Nutmeg herself wanted to be in the very center of that photograph. If Dr. Sophie had been on the other side of the sock puppet would have been the central focus of that photograph. Can't have that. So yes, that's what happened. The whole world saw it, and the whole world was pretty darn critical of it, as well it should be. Sock Puppet sends his people to Dr. Sophie and says, we want you to issue a statement in defense of Meghan and say that she was not mean to you. Dr. Sophie refuses. She says she sees no reason for the charity to become involved in acting as a PR outlet for the Sussex brand, and that it sets a dangerous precedent. She is absolutely correct. Frankly, if I were her, I would have said, well, she was mean. But she didn't. She forbore, and she was polite about it, and simply took the tack that it's not appropriate. I would have said it's simply not true. That apparently started the bad feeling, because in the words of the sock puppet, what Meghan wants, Meghan gets. Well, she did not get that public support from Dr. Sophie. So suddenly, Sophie, who has been on this board at this point for, more than 15 years, suddenly finds her support eroding. Interesting, right? Eventually, and this is just within the space of a few months, the board is asking for Sophie's resignation. Well, is that a coincidence? I think not. Sophie refuses. She's like, no, I'm not going anywhere. The board then resigns in protest. The sock puppet and the Lesotho prince then resign in protest. And Sophie is fine with this. Why? Because she knows that she is not doing anything either corrupt, vindictive, in any way personal or inappropriate, that her actions are in the best interests of the charity. So she kicks this back to the UK government and their charity watchdog organization. Why? Because, again, corporate lawyer. If there were anything in this mess that could turn on her, she wouldn't do that, because she's not an idiot. So how do I think this is going to play out? I think they are going to be forced to at least consider the fact that Sophie is not guilty of any wrongdoing, period. She is making decisions in the best interests of this charity, which is to separate it from rich white polo players, a few minor donors, a highly toxic, and this was one of her complaints about the sock puppet, a highly toxic founder. Oh, and of course his highly toxic wife, although she didn't say that, I did. Because the problems with the Sussex brand are starting to flow over to the Sentebale charity, which does the charity no good. And this is where we are left right now. The next step, assuming that nobody does anything untoward in the meantime, will be for the UK Charity Watchdog Agency to take a look at what's going on and render an opinion. Will they? I do not know. It seems to me very, very likely that if they were to render an honest opinion, they would have to conclude that the sock puppet's personal interest in the polo matches that are being used to fund this charity are not the most effective expenditure of time and effort in fundraising. That's all there is to it. The numbers don't lie. So, would that be likely? I don't know. I don't know. The sock puppet's father is the king. I have no idea the extent to which that might influence the decision. Do I think that they will come out with a reprimand for Dr. Sophie? No, I do not. I do not. It looks like her ducks are all lined up in a row. So, what are the other side saying? So, the other side is the sock puppet, Princessio of Lesotho, and the board of trustees, who have pretty much all resigned. Their position seems to be that this is a publicity stunt on the part of Dr. Sophie. Well, I would have to say, if it is, it's a good one. But I also have to say, is she really the one who courts media attention assiduously? Is she really the one who complains about the press every Thursday and then goes out courting their goodwill 2 days later? No, no. This is definitely a Sussex tactic. They are the ones who go to the media to tarnish other people's reputations. We've seen this again and again. And I honestly feel that this is simply a woman whose heart is in the right place, who has the education, the training, and the brains to back that up, trying to move a charity that is focused in her part of the world. Remember, she's had her boots on that ground for more than 15 years, and she has been involved in that charity for all this time. She knows what is best for this part of the world. Certainly, she is in a much better position to make that judgment than a bunch of rich white guys in London. So, I don't know what to say as far as that goes. It seems crystal clear to me what is going on. And I think the haiku version is we have a highly intelligent, deeply committed African woman trying to safeguard the reputation and the interests of a charity that is doing good work in her part of the world. And in order to do that, she is taking on the Sussex machine, basically. She has to go after the sock puppet. She has to question the wisdom of these high-profile polo matches and also the extent to which Harry personally benefits from this. Because remember, this isn't just money going to Sentebale. It's huge, huge amounts of positive press going to Harry personally and his wife. And of course, then with the wife playing in, we have a woman who, basically said, I'm sorry. You may think what Meghan wants, Meghan gets, but I don't agree with you. I wish Dr. Sophie all the luck in the world, but this is basically the lay of the land. This is what's going on. And as I say, if you want to see the money, go over to the Royal Grift, because she has been looking at that for the last couple of weeks. And like I say, her research is good. So that is what I have for you today. I hope this helps to clarify things so that as this continues to unfold, we are going to be able to look at this intelligently and spot what comes down the line next. Some of you may remember the last time we spoke about this, I said I was sure nutmeg was going to surface in this. And oh yeah, she sure did. Because when you are looking at all of the factors, the agenda becomes extremely clear. Yeah. And I am Team Sophie on this. I think even if her ideas were complete crap, I think an African woman determining the course of an African charity has got to be more fair and more just than a bunch of foreigners with their polo matches. So we are going to take a look at a slideshow on the way out. I hope to see you all next time. And in the meanwhile, have a terrific day.